You might already be familiar with the teaching that in order to manifest your desires, you need to change your self concept. The rationale behind this is that the divine mirror, i.e., the manifested reality, the world that appears as if it's out there, is reflecting back to you the self that you are embodying or the self that you are identified with. So, therefore, if you change the identity of self, then the mirror will reflect back this change, this transformation, because a mirror can only reflect what is stood in front of it. So, for example, this teaching would suggest that if you embody a self that does not believe they have the life that they want, that believes they have all of these limitations and all of these struggles, then the mirror will reflect this embodied self back in the physical world. If the person was then to work on this concept of self, such as fixing it, healing it, making it better and more empowered, seeing themselves as someone that does have the life that they want and that they do have their desires, then the mirror will reflect this back. Because again, a mirror can only reflect what is stood in front of it. Now, this is the most basic and straightforward explanation of how manifestation truly works. You're not causing the reality. Reality is a reflection. Now, all of this is true, and technically, changing your self concept does work. If you transform the self, if you change it, the mirror will change too because it has no choice. You're not making anything happen outside of you. You're not manipulating reality. The reality is just reflecting back your own internal shift. So, in a nutshell, does changing your self concept work? Yes, it does. But here's why I don't teach it. The self or ego, you can use that word too, they're the exact same thing, is imagined. The self is a collection of ideas, beliefs, and stories about who you believe yourself to be. And all that is keeping this construction of self or ego intact is your identification with it and your dedication to it. Who you really are is the faceless, formless God or consciousness that is all things. And so the arrangement of self that you are currently expressing as or currently experiencing is just a temporary impression in consciousness, and you can actually express as anything you desire. The fatal flaw with the teaching of changing your self concept is that it exacerbates this identification with self. It keeps you stuck in identifying with something that you're not and trying to change it into something else. So, a common phrase in the manifestation community is that the mirror is showing you who you are. It isn't. It's showing you who you are not. You are not the self. So you don't need to change or fix or heal something that is not even you in the first place. When you believe that you are this old, disempowered version of self and you're trying to change it into a more desired version of self, it often plays out like this. And I'm going to use a visual aid. So I'm going to use my tarot cards for this. So this card represents the old self, the disempowered self that you are wanting to change. And this card represents the desired self who is already where they want to be. So here you are over here in this disempowered self that doesn't have what you want, and you're trying to become this self, and you're healing the wounds, and you're fixing the limiting beliefs that you believe will transform you from this to this. You're repeating the affirmations, you're doing the shadow work, you're doing the inner child work, you're doing all of the techniques to get from here to here, and you believe you don't have it. You believe that you are not this already. And you're doing over here, trying to make this into that. Guess what the mirror reflects back? It continues to reflect back what you are identified with, which is this. I don't have it, and I'm trying to get it. I'm over here, and I want to be over here. And this is when some of you say, but I'm doing all of the inner work, and why am I not seeing what I want? Or why am I only seeing some results? Why do I connect with this, but then this keeps popping back up? Because you're identified with it. In trying so hard to make this expression be this one, you're actually holding on to it even more. And you might get glimpses of the new self. You might try to act as it. You might try and think from it. You might connect to it by feeling it. But it will be short lived, and you will keep returning back to this old self over and over and over until you finally realize that you are none of these selves anyway. You are the faceless, formless God. You are consciousness. The selves are just an expression of that, and you get to choose. But you cannot choose from this identification. A caterpillar does not grow into a butterfly. It enters the cocoon, it dies and disintegrates, and then it's reborn as a butterfly. A butterfly is not a caterpillar that just grew some wings. A caterpillar and a butterfly are two completely different things. So, in the same way, the old self has to die for you to express as the new self. And this expression happens naturally on its own. You don't have to make this become that. What you actually need to do is more like this. You drop it. You let go of it. You stop identifying with the old identity of self. You stop entertaining it. You don't need to transform it. You don't need to heal it. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to affirm it different. You don't need to think it different. You drop it. And when you drop it, you emerge into the truth of who you truly are, which is consciousness or God. And now you have a choice with what you wish to align with. And that is based on love. What is it that you love? What is it you would love to experience? And when you imagine your desires from that vantage point, as the observer, as the faceless, formless, it starts to express naturally on its own. No intervention needed, no shadow work, no inner child work, no building of the self concept, no affirmations needed. And this is what spiritual surrender truly looks like. You don't need to manually change or fix the old self. You can if you want to, but you don't need to do that. What you really need to do is release the old self and realize that you are not that in the first place. If you were the old self, you would not be able to drop it. You would not be able to drop something if you truly were that. You can't drop being God. You can't stop being the observer, but you can drop being a self. Now, if you want to go down the usual self-concept route, will it work eventually? Yes, it can do. But what will happen is you will go on this hero's journey. It will start a trajectory of healing that can take years. And as I said before, it will keep you stuck in this identification with being a separate self. And you will suffer unnecessarily because the suffering will become heightened. The feedback mechanism of the divine mirror, the reflection, will keep reflecting the same suffering over and over and over again, and it will magnify because it's trying to show you, it's trying to draw your attention to the fact that you are heavily identifying with this. You think that you are this, you think you are something you're not. You must do, or else you wouldn't be trying to fix it. You're so identified with it, you think you need to heal it, you think you need to change it because you're classing it as a problem. So drop it. Drop it and come back to your true identity as the divine. Simply focus on what it is that you would love, and the self that you're expressing as will naturally change effortlessly on its own without you having to do anything at all. And as we already know, the divine mirror reflects back what you're identified with, and your desire will manifest.